In a shocking turn of events, the Galactic Council's attempts to telepathically scan the minds of humanity's leaders failed utterly, sending shockwaves of disbelief through the alien delegation. The sleek Barzan vessel had descended through Earth's atmosphere just hours before, landing on the White House lawn and marking a historic moment of first contact. As the ship's occupants emerged, led by the ethereal ambassador Sirius, they projected their thoughts directly into the minds of the emergency summit's attendees, expressing peaceful intentions. Sirius revealed the Barzan's centuries-long observation of humanity. Impressed by the species' rapid development and potential, the aliens believed humanity was ready to join the Galactic Council, an alliance of enlightened spacefaring races. However, when Sirius attempted to telepathically verify the leader's intentions as a standard security measure, he found himself unable to penetrate their minds. Intensifying his psychic probe yielded no results. The human minds remained opaque, impenetrable barriers. As concerned murmurs spread through the Barzan delegation, confirming the phenomena was not isolated to Sirius alone, tension mounted in the room. Will Gray, a skilled human diplomat, stepped forward. Maintaining composure despite his own astonishment at his apparent immunity, Gray assured the Barzans of humanity's peaceful intentions and eagerness to learn about the Galactic Council. He proposed a joint task force to investigate the perplexing issue of human psychic immunity, a suggestion Sirius accepted. In the wake of the aliens' retreat to their ship for private deliberations, the human leaders erupted into heated debate. Some saw strategic advantage in the Barzans' inability to read their thoughts, while others feared it would be interpreted as hostility. Covert agencies assembled scientific and intelligence teams to study the alien abilities, as a rogue Barzan faction secretly plotted against the Alliance, convinced unreadable human minds posed an existential threat to their psychic supremacy. The monumental first contact now hinged on a single question. Would humanity's unorthodox nature prove their greatest strength or herald their ultimate downfall in the galactic community? The world watched with bated breath as the quest for answers began. As the Barzan delegation filed back into their sleek vessel, an air of unease settled over the White House lawn. The human leaders exchanged glances, their minds racing with the implications of this unprecedented encounter. Amidst the chaos, a small group quietly slipped away from the crowd, their movements purposeful and precise. Dr. Lena Sargent strode down the hallway of a nondescript government building, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She had been summoned mere hours ago, pulled away from her cutting-edge research on the human brain. As she entered the secure conference room, she found herself face-to-face with an eclectic group of individuals, each hand-picked for their unique skills and expertise. Will Gray, his diplomatic attire slightly rumpled from the day's events, greeted her with a nod. "Dr. Sargent, thank you for coming on such short notice. We have much to discuss." As the team settled around the table, Gray briefed them on the situation. "The Barzan's inability to read our minds has thrown them into disarray. We need to understand why, and fast. Dr. Sargent, that's where you come in." Lena leaned forward, her eyes alight with curiosity. "I've been analyzing the brain scans of the diplomats present at the encounter. There's a pattern, a unique neurological signature that I believe is responsible for the psychic immunity. I call it the Sargent variant." The room buzzed with excitement as Lena explained her findings. The Sargent variant, it seemed, was more common among neurodivergent individuals, hinting at a profound link between human diversity and their newfound advantage. Meanwhile, aboard the Barzan ship, tensions reached a boiling point. Admiral Zorn paced the bridge, his face contorted with anger. "These humans are a threat," he growled. "Their unreadable minds make them unpredictable, dangerous. We must act now before it's too late." Ambassador Sirius held up a hand, his voice calm but firm. "We came here to extend an offer of peace, not to start a war. We must proceed with caution and understanding." Dr. Amara, the ship's psychologist, nodded in agreement. "The humans are not our enemy. Their neurological differences could be the key to unlocking new levels of cooperation and growth between our species." But Zorn would not be swayed. As the debate raged on, he quietly slipped away, his loyal followers close behind. They had their own plans, ones that would ensure Barzan's supremacy at any cost. Back on Earth, Gray and Sargent worked tirelessly to unravel the secrets of the Sargent variant. They pored over data, conducted experiments, and sought out individuals with the unique neurological signature. Each discovery brought them closer to understanding the true potential of the human mind. In a daring move, Gray arranged a clandestine meeting between Sargent and Ambassador Sirius. The two scientists, one human and one Barzan, found common ground in their pursuit of knowledge. As they shared their findings, a glimmer of hope began to take hold. But even as progress was made, dark forces conspired against them. Zorn's spies had infiltrated the human facility, relaying every move back to their master. The Admiral's plans grew more sinister by the day, his hunger for power consuming him. Sirius and Amara, unaware of the danger lurking within their own ranks, continued to push for diplomacy. They met with human leaders, exchanging ideas and seeking common ground. But the shadow of Zorn's ambition loomed ever larger, threatening to engulf them all. As the days turned into weeks, the fragile alliance between humans and Barzans began to fray at the edges. Misunderstandings and cultural differences sowed seeds of discord, even as Sargent and Amara worked to bridge the gap. Gray found himself caught in the middle, torn between his duty to his own species and his growing respect for the Barzans. He spent long hours in meetings, trying to find a path forward that would satisfy both sides. But it was all for naught. In a stunning betrayal, Zorn staged his coup, seizing control of the Barzan ship and its powerful weapons. Sirius and Amara were taken captive, their fate uncertain. As news of the coup spread, panic gripped the human world. Leaders scrambled to prepare for war, while Gray and Sargent raced against time to find a solution. They knew that the key to stopping Zorn lay in the very thing that divided their species, the untapped potential of the human mind. But with the clock ticking down and the specter of interstellar war looming on the horizon, they could only hope that their efforts would be enough to save both their worlds from destruction. The Barzan ship's sudden takeoff sent shockwaves through the gathered crowd on the White House lawn. Will Gray watched in disbelief as the sleek vessel disappeared into the clouds, his mind racing with the implications of what had just occurred. "We need to move now," he muttered, grabbing Dr. Lena Sargent by the arm and steering her away from the chaos. They rushed through the winding corridors of the White House, finally reaching a secure communications room. Will's fingers flew over the keypad, punching in a number he hadn't used in years. The line rang twice before a gruff voice answered. "This better be good, Gray. I was in the middle of something." "Marcus, it's worse than we could have imagined. I need your help." Colonel Marcus Blackwell listened intently as Will outlined the situation. His voice grew tense as he absorbed the gravity of the crisis. "A covert extraction from an alien spacecraft? You don't ask for small favors, do you?" Despite the sarcasm, Will could hear the excitement in his old friend's voice. "I'll assemble my team. We'll be there in 4 hours." As Will ended the call, he turned to find Dr. Sargent staring at a screen filled with complex neurological data. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "Will, you need to see this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He leaned in, trying to make sense of the intricate patterns and graphs. "What am I looking at, Lena?" She pointed to a specific section of the display. "This is the neurological signature of the Sargent variant. But look here," her finger moved to another area. "This is data from the Barzan ship's emissions during their attempted mind probe." Will's brow furrowed. "They're similar." "More than similar," Lena corrected. "They're nearly identical." "Will, I don't think the Barzan's telepathic abilities are natural. They're induced by exposure to a specific type of cosmic radiation." The implications hit Will like a freight train. "Are you saying we could potentially—" Lena nodded, her eyes gleaming with commitment. "Give humans telepathic abilities? Yes, I think it's possible." Will paced the room, his mind racing. The potential advantages were enormous, but so were the risks. After a long moment, he stopped and faced Lena. "Do it. Set up whatever you need. We're going to need every edge we can get." As Lena rushed off to begin her work, Will made another call. Within hours, a group of volunteers had been assembled, each carefully screened for their potential compatibility with the Sargent variant. Among them stood Lieutenant Alex Novak, a young soldier with piercing blue eyes and an air of quiet intensity. As Dr. Sargent explained the procedure, Alex's gaze never wavered, absorbing every detail with laser-like focus. The training process was grueling. Days blurred into nights as the volunteers pushed their minds to the limit. Alex emerged as a standout, his neurodivergent brain adapting to the new abilities with surprising speed. Meanwhile, aboard the Barzan ship, Admiral Zorn paced the bridge like a caged animal. His eyes, once clear and determined, now held a manic gleam. "Tell me what they're planning," he roared, looming over the battered forms of Sirius and Dr. Amara. Sirius, his usually immaculate appearance now disheveled, met Zorn's gaze with defiance. "We will not betray those who seek peace, Zorn. Your actions shame us all." Before Zorn could respond, a young officer burst onto the bridge. "Admiral, we've detected an unauthorized transmission from the lower decks." Zorn's face contorted with rage. "Find the source, now!" In the bowels of the ship, Lyra, a young Barzan telepath, frantically worked to encrypt her message to Earth. Her fingers trembled as she heard the sound of approaching footsteps. As the door burst open, she managed to hit send before being roughly dragged away. Back on Earth, Colonel Blackwell's team prepared for their daring mission. Will watched as they donned advanced stealth suits, each movement precise and practiced. Alex approached, his eyes now holding a strange, otherworldly depth. "Sir, I'm picking up a transmission from the Barzan ship. It's weak, but I think someone's trying to help us." Will's heart raced. This could be the break they needed. He turned to Blackwell, who nodded grimly. "All right, people," the colonel's voice rang out. "We have a narrow window. Let's move out." As the team boarded their specially modified craft, Will felt a mix of hope and dread. The fate of two worlds now rested on this high-stakes endeavor. In the depths of the Barzan ship, Zorn stood before a massive device, its surface pulsing with eerie energy. His laughter echoed through the chamber as he placed his hand on the control panel. "Let them come," he snarled. "They'll soon learn the true power of the Barzan mind." The device hummed to life, its influence reaching out across the stars, as the human rescue team hurtled towards their rendezvous with destiny. The human rescue team's craft streaked through the atmosphere, its stealth systems engaged to evade Zorn's sensors. Inside, Will Gray's mind raced. They needed a new strategy, fast. "Change of plans," he announced, his voice tight. "We're not boarding that ship. It's too risky." Colonel Blackwell raised an eyebrow. "Then what's our play?" Will took a deep breath. "We're going straight to the top, the Galactic Council." Lena's eyes widened. "Are you sure that's wise? We barely understand our place in the galactic community." "It's our only shot," Will replied. "Zorn's actions aren't just a threat to Earth. They're a violation of galactic law." As their craft changed course, Will composed an urgent message to the Council. His fingers flew over the console, detailing Zorn's coup and the threat he posed. He emphasized humanity's unique psychic immunity, hoping it would pique the Council's interest. Hours later, a massive ship materialized in Earth's orbit. Its sleek design dwarfed even the Barzan vessel. A voice crackled over the comms. "This is Commander Taylor of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force. We received your petition and are here to assist." Relief washed over Will's face as he responded. "Commander, thank you for coming. We're ready to cooperate fully." The human team docked with Taylor's ship, marveling at its advanced technology. They were escorted to a conference room where Commander Taylor awaited them. Her tall, lithe form radiated authority, her silver eyes scanning each human with keen interest. "Your situation is unique," Taylor began. "Zorn has long been a problem for the Council. His anti-human rhetoric and disregard for our laws have not gone unnoticed." Will leaned forward. "What can we do to perseverance this crisis?" Taylor's expression hardened. "We must act swiftly. Our intel suggests Zorn is planning a preemptive strike against Earth." As they discussed strategy, a commotion erupted outside the room. Dr. Amara burst in, her face pale but determined. "I've made contact with someone on Zorn's ship," she gasped. "A young telepath named Lyra. She's been feeding us information." Alex Novak stepped forward, his eyes glowing faintly. "I can confirm. We've established a rudimentary psychic link." Commander Taylor's silver eyes narrowed. "This changes things. We may have an advantage we didn't expect." Will's mind raced with possibilities. What if we brought everyone to the table? A diplomatic summit on neutral ground? Taylor considered for a moment, then nodded. "It's risky, but it might be our best chance to avoid bloodshed. My ship can serve as the neutral territory." Preparations began immediately. Dr. Sargent worked with her team of neurodivergent telepaths to create a psychic shield around the conference room. Will coordinated with Earth's leaders, while Taylor sent a formal summons to Zorn. As the delegations arrived, tension crackled in the air. Zorn strode into the room, his face a mask of awe-inspiring rage. Will took his seat across from the Admiral, acutely aware of the weight of two worlds resting on his shoulders. "This farce changes nothing," Zorn snarled. "The humans are a threat that must be eliminated." Will opened his mouth to respond, but Alex cut him off. The young soldier's eyes blazed with an otherworldly light as he locked gazes with Zorn. Suddenly, the Admiral staggered back, his face contorting in shock. Alex's voice was strained. "I'm showing him everything, our minds, our experiences, what it means to be human." Zorn's eyes widened, his certainty visibly shaken. In that moment of weakness, Lyra stood up from the Barzan delegation. "Enough, Admiral," she declared, her voice ringing out. "Your warmongering ends now. I pledge my loyalty to the Council and to peace with humanity." One by one, Zorn's supporters began to distance themselves. The Admiral's face twisted with fury, but he found himself surrounded by Council peacekeepers, his plans crumbling around him. As Zorn was led away in restraints, Will exhaled slowly. The immediate crisis had been averted, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Humanity's place in the galactic community hung in the balance, and the power they had discovered within themselves would need to be wielded with great responsibility. Commander Taylor approached, her expression unreadable. "The Council will need to discuss your status moving forward," she said. "But for now, let's focus on stabilizing the situation with the Barzans." Will nodded, his mind already racing with the challenges ahead. As he looked around the room at humans and aliens working side by side, he realized that the universe had just become a much larger, more complex place, and humanity's role in it was far from certain. The dust settled in the aftermath of the tense negotiations. Will Gray stood at the viewport of Commander Taylor's ship, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The immediate crisis had been averted, but a new chapter fraught with challenges lay ahead. "It's not ideal, but it's the best we could hope for," Commander Taylor said, her silver eyes reflecting the blue-green orb of Earth. Will nodded, his eyes sharp. "A tenuous peace is better than no peace at all." The terms of the agreement greatly troubled on his mind. Strict regulations on human psychic abilities, oversight from the Galactic Council, and a lengthy vetting process for membership. It felt like humanity was being put on probation. "I need to speak with Lyra," Will said, turning from the viewport. "Her perspective might help us navigate this new landscape." He found the young Barzan telepath in a quiet corner of the ship's botanical garden. Lyra's normally vibrant skin seemed pale, her large eyes distant as she absently stroked the leaves of an alien fern. "How are you holding up?" Will asked, taking a seat beside her. Lyra sighed, her gaze meeting his. "It's complicated. I've betrayed my people in a way, but I couldn't stand by and watch Zorn destroy everything." "Tell me about the Barzans," Will prompted gently. "Help me understand." Lyra's words flowed, painting a picture of a society deeply conflicted about psychic abilities. "For generations, we've viewed mind control as an aberration, something to be suppressed. Zorn and his followers, they twisted that fear into a weapon, equating psychic power with racial superiority." Will listened intently, his mind racing with the implications. "And now humans have stumbled into this powder keg." Lyra nodded, her expression softening. "I empathize with your situation, Will. You've unlocked a part of yourselves that you can't simply ignore. But tread carefully. The galaxy isn't ready for unfettered human telepaths." As Will digested Lyra's words, activity buzzed elsewhere on the ship. Dr. Lena Sargent stood in a modified training room, observing as her team of neurodivergent recruits underwent rigorous exercises alongside Commander Taylor's telepaths. "Focus, Alex," Lena urged, watching as Lieutenant Novak strained to maintain a psychic shield. "Remember the techniques we practiced." Alex gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead. The shield flickered, then stabilized. A small victory, but the weight of responsibility pressed down on the young soldier's shoulders. Dr. Amara approached, her keen eyes taking in the scene. "He's progressing well," she murmured to Lena. "But I worry about the long-term implications. Will the Council ever truly accept human telepaths as equals?" Lena's response was cut short by an urgent communication. Colonel Blackwell's face appeared on a nearby screen, his expression grim. "We have a situation," he reported. "General Forge has gone rogue. He's conducting illegal psychic experiments on kidnapped test subjects." The news sent shockwaves through the ship. Will immediately convened an emergency meeting with Commander Taylor and key members of his team. "This is exactly the kind of reckless behavior the Council fears," Taylor said, her silver eyes flashing with concern. Before they could formulate a response, alarms blared throughout the ship. A frenzied psychic, one of Forge's escaped test subjects, had broken free and was wreaking havoc. Alex sprinted down a corridor, his enhanced senses reaching out to locate the threat. He rounded a corner and came face to face with the escapee, a man driven mad by crude psychic augmentation. Time seemed to slow as Alex reached out with his mind, attempting to subdue the rogue psychic. The air crackled with invisible energy as their minds clashed. Alex felt himself being pushed to the limit, teetering on the edge of his own sanity as he fought to contain the raw, uncontrolled power before him. With a final surge of will, Alex overpowered the escaped subject. Both men collapsed to the floor, Alex's nose bleeding from the strain. In the aftermath, Will found himself once again facing the Galactic Council. This time, he came armed with irrefutable evidence of General Forge's illegal activities. The Council's ultimatum was clear: place all psychic research and training under their direct oversight, or forfeit any chance of galactic membership. Will spent long hours in heated debates with Earth's leadership, arguing passionately for compliance. "This is our only path forward," he insisted, his voice hoarse from the prolonged discussions. In the end, they acquiesced. A joint training facility was established on an uninhabited moon, a neutral ground where human, Barzan, and Council telepaths could work together under careful supervision. As the first transport ship prepared to depart for the moon base, Will watched the assembled recruits. Their faces showed a mix of excitement and apprehension. Alex Novak stood among them, his eyes now holding a depth of experience beyond his years. "Are we doing the right thing?" Alex asked quietly as Will approached. Will placed a hand on the young soldier's shoulder. "We're taking our first steps into a larger universe. It won't be easy, but it's a journey we have to make." As the ship's engines roared to life, Will couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much longer, more complex story. Humanity's place among the stars hung in the balance, and the path ahead was anything but certain. The lunar surface of Hekara stretched out before Will Gray, a barren expanse dotted with the gleaming domes of the joint training facility. He stood at the viewport of the command center, watching as a shuttle touched down on the landing pad, kicking up plumes of gray dust. "Inara Del Keth has arrived," a voice announced over the intercom. Will straightened his uniform and made his way to the airlock. As the door cycled open, a tall, imposing figure stepped through. Inara's piercing gaze swept the room before settling on Will. "Mr. Gray," she said, her voice crisp and authoritative, "I trust you're prepared for our inspection?" Will nodded, gesturing towards the main corridor. "Of course, Counselor. If you'll follow me, I'll show you our progress." As they walked, Will detailed the facility's achievements, emphasizing the careful protocols in place. Inara listened, her expression neutral. "And what of General Forge's indiscretions?" she asked, her tone sharpening. Will's eyes hardened. "A regrettable incident. We've implemented stricter security measures to prevent any such breaches in the future." Inara's eyes narrowed. "Not good enough, Mr. Gray. The Council remains unconvinced of humanity's readiness for full autonomy in psychic research." Before Will could respond, they reached the observation deck overlooking the training arena. Below, a group of recruits stood in formation, their faces a mix of purpose and nervousness. "Initiating simulation," a technician announced. The air shimmered, and suddenly the arena transformed into a chaotic urban battlefield. Will's eyes were drawn to one figure who moved with exceptional grace and purpose. "That's Alex Novak," Will explained, "our most promising recruit." Inara leaned forward, watching intently as Alex navigated the simulated chaos. His movements were fluid, almost prescient, as he anticipated and countered each threat. "Impressive," Inara admitted, "but raw talent isn't enough. We need assurance that humanity can be trusted with these abilities." Will opened his mouth to argue, but a commotion from the arena floor drew their attention. One of the recruits had broken formation, his face contorted in rage. "That's Lieutenant Chandra," Will said, frowning. "He's been difficult." Inara's eyes narrowed. "This is exactly the kind of instability we fear. Your people are too volatile, too unpredictable." As they watched, Alex moved to intercept Chandra. The two locked eyes, and for a moment the air between them seemed to crackle with unseen energy. Then Chandra's shoulders slumped, and he allowed himself to be led away by the instructors. "What just happened?" Inara demanded. Will shook his head, equally puzzled. "I'm not sure, but I intend to find out." Later that evening, Will found Alex in the rec room, deep in conversation with a holographic interface. "In EVIS, run the simulation again," Alex was saying. "I need to understand what triggered Chandra's outburst." Will cleared his throat and Alex looked up, startled. "Sir," he said, quickly dismissing the hologram. "I was just—" Will held up a hand. "At ease, Novak. I'm more interested in what happened in the arena today. How did you calm Chandra?" Alex hesitated, his eyes darting to where any vice had been. "It's hard to explain, sir. I just knew what he was feeling, and I showed him that his anger wasn't helping anyone." Will nodded slowly, his mind racing with the implications. "Keep this to yourself for now, Alex, but I think you might be the key to proving ourselves to the Council." As Will left the rec room, he didn't notice the small drone hovering in the shadows, its camera lens focused intently on Alex. In a hidden corner of the facility, Lieutenant Chandra watched the feed, his face twisted in a mixture of envy and grit. "Did you get all that?" he whispered into a secure comm channel. A gruff voice crackled in response. "Every word, Lieutenant. Keep your eyes on Novak. He might be the leverage we need." Chandra grinned, already imagining the power that would soon be his. "Understood, General Forge. I won't let you down." Will's comm unit buzzed, interrupting his conversation with Alex. Inara's stern face appeared on the screen. "Mr. Gray, my office, now." Will suppressed a sigh as he made his way through the facility's sterile corridors. The counselor's increased presence had brought a palpable tension to Hikara. As he entered Inara's office, he found her poring over holographic readouts, her silver eyes reflecting the flickering data. "Your security protocols are inadequate," she stated without looking up. "We've detected multiple breaches in the past week alone." Will's eyes hardened. "With all due respect, Counselor, we've implemented every measure you've requested." Inara's gaze snapped to his. "And yet, it's not enough. The Council remains unconvinced of humanity's readiness." An idea formed in Will's mind. What if we could prove ourselves through action rather than words? Inara raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "Integrate our recruits into active Galactic Council operations. Let them demonstrate their abilities in real-world scenarios." The counselor's expression hardened. "Out of the question. The risk is too great." Will leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "The risk of not acting is greater. How can we ever hope to join the galactic community if we're not given the chance to contribute?" Inara's eyes narrowed, but Will saw a flicker of consideration. "I'll think on it," she said finally. "Dismissed." As the door closed behind him, Will's mind raced. He needed to accelerate their progress, council approval or not. Days later, in a secure room deep within the facility, Will watched as Alex Novak faced off against a seasoned council telepath in a simulated combat scenario. Commander Taylor stood beside him, her silver eyes fixed on the hollow display. Alex moved with uncanny precision, his movements fluid and purposeful. The Council telepath, a veteran of countless missions, found himself constantly on the defensive. "Impressive," Taylor murmured. "How is he anticipating the attack so accurately?" Will's eyes narrowed, focusing on the slight shimmer of light near Alex's temple. "NEVIS," he whispered. "They've developed some kind of synergy." As Alex claimed another victory, alarms blared throughout the facility. Will's comm unit crackled to life. "Sir, we've lost contact with Outpost Sigma," a frantic voice reported. "All communications are dark." Will's blood ran cold. He knew what this meant. "Forge," he growled. Within hours, a recon team was assembled. Will watched as Alex boarded the shuttle, his young face set with purpose. "Be careful out there," Will cautioned. "Forge is cunning and desperate. Don't underestimate him." Alex nodded, his hand unconsciously touching the spot where NEVIS interfaced with his neural implant. "We'll find out what happened, sir." As the shuttle disappeared into the starry void, Will couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The next few days passed in a haze of tension and sleepless nights. When Alex's team finally reported in, their news sent shockwaves through the facility. "It's worse than we thought," Alex's holographic form flickered as he delivered his report. "Forge has developed some kind of psychic control device. The entire outpost population, they're like puppets." Will's fist clenched. "How did you escape?" Alex's eyes darted to the side where the faint outline of NEVIS hovered. "We got lucky. My shields held, and NEVIS managed to disrupt their signals long enough for us to get out." As Will processed this information, the facility rocked with a massive explosion. Alarms blared as Inara's voice cut through the chaos. "We're under attack. All personnel to battle stations." Will sprinted towards the command center, his legs shaking. How had Forge found them? As he rounded a corner, he saw Dr. Sargent crumpled on the floor. A group of terrified recruits huddled behind her. "Get to the safe room," Will shouted, helping Lena to her feet. Blood seeped from a wound in her side. "I'll hold them off," she gasped, her eyes blazing with willpower. Before Will could argue, another explosion rocked the facility. He made a split-second decision. "NEVIS, facility-wide broadcast," he commanded. "All personnel, this is Will Gray. Initiate emergency evacuation protocol Omega. Repeat, protocol Omega." As the AI confirmed his order, Will knew he had just crossed a line. Inara would never forgive this unauthorized action. But as he helped the wounded towards the evacuation point, watching as Alex and Commander Taylor fought off waves of Forge's mind-controlled soldiers, Will realized that forgiveness was the least of his worries. The battle for humanity's future had begun, and the cost would be higher than anyone could have imagined. The evacuation alarms faded as the last shuttle departed Hikara's surface. Will Gray stood in the command center, surrounded by the remnants of his team, and a palpable tension that hung in the air like a storm cloud. Inara's eyes blazed with terrifying fury. "You've overstepped your authority, Mr. Gray. The Council will not look kindly on this unauthorized action." Before Will could respond, Commander Taylor stepped forward, her silver eyes reflecting the flickering emergency lights. "With respect, Counselor, we had no choice. Forge's attack left us vulnerable. Gray's decision saved lives." Inara's expression resolute, but she nodded curtly. "We'll discuss this further. For now, we need to assess the damage and secure the facility." As the dust settled and the wounded were tended to, a fragile peace descended upon the training center. Will found himself in endless meetings with Inara and the Council, arguing for increased integration of human recruits into galactic operations. "We've proven our worth," Will insisted, gesturing to the holographic display of Alex Novak's combat data. "Give us a real chance to contribute." Inara's expression remained skeptical, but something in her eyes had changed. "Very well," she said after a long pause. "I'll authorize a series of field deployments, but know this, Gray. One misstep, and it all ends." Weeks passed in a blur of intense training and carefully monitored missions. Will watched with pride as Alex and his team grew more confident, their abilities honed to a razor's edge. Then came the day that changed everything. Will stood in the command center, watching the live feed from Alex's team as they approached a council trade hub. It was supposed to be a routine mission, until it wasn't. "Sir, we've got incoming." Alex's voice crackled through the comm. "Unknown vessels, massive energy signatures." The feed erupted into chaos. Towering figures materialized on the station, their bodies a fusion of organic and mechanical parts. Will's blood ran cold as he witnessed their devastating psionic assault. "Novak, get your team out of there now," Will barked. He watched in horror as the alien beings, the Vicarim, he would later learn, unleashed mind blasts that crumpled council envoys like paper dolls. Only Alex, his face contorted with effort, managed to erect a psionic shield. "Any vice! Countermeasures!" Alex shouted, his voice strained. A shimmering barrier expanded from Alex, pushing back against the Vicarim assault. Will held his breath as Alex's team stumbled towards their shuttle, the young soldier's nose bleeding from the mental exertion. As the shuttle broke atmosphere, Will slumped in relief, but the reprieve was short-lived. "The council is reconvening," Inara announced, her voice tight. "They're voting on whether to expel the human recruits from active duty." Will's mind raced. They were so close to proving themselves, to securing humanity's place among the stars. He couldn't let it end like this. He found Alex in the medical bay, electrodes attached to his temples as Dr. Sargent ran scans. "How are you feeling?" Will asked, his voice low. Alex's eyes were haunted, but there was a fire there too. "Like my brain's been put through a blender," he said with a weak smile. "But sir, those aliens, the Vicarim, their power was unlike anything we've faced. And yet—" Will leaned closer. "What is it, Alex?" "I think we can beat them," Alex said, his voice growing stronger. "Our minds, they're different, more adaptable. If we can harness that, combine it with Barzan techniques—" Will nodded, a plan already forming. "Rest up, soldier. I think you just gave us our ace in the hole." As he left the medical bay, Will's comm unit buzzed. It was Commander Taylor. "Gray, you need to get to the council chambers, now." Will quickened his pace, his heart pounding. He knew the next few moments would determine not just his fate, but the fate of humanity's place among the stars. The council chamber doors loomed before him, and Will took a deep breath. Whatever happened next, he was ready to fight for humanity's future. Will Gray stepped into the council chamber, his eyebrows furrowed. The air crackled with tension as representatives from across the galaxy argued in a cacophony of languages and psionic projections. Inara's voice cut through the din. "Order! We must address the human situation immediately." Will scanned the room, noting the deep divide between factions. On one side, Inara and her conservative allies radiated waves of apprehension. On the other, Commander Taylor and a group of progressive council members leaned forward, their eyes bright with excitement. "The human Alex Novak has demonstrated abilities beyond our comprehension," Taylor said, her silver eyes flashing. "We cannot ignore the potential this represents for expanding our understanding of cosmic consciousness itself." Inara's face hardened. "Potential or threat? We've seen what unchecked psychic power can do. The Vicarim nearly destroyed us all." Will stepped forward, his voice steady. "Counselors, if I may, Alex's victory over the Vicarim proves humanity's value to the galactic community. We've earned our place among the stars." The chamber erupted into fresh arguments. Will caught snippets of heated debates about regulation, sovereignty, and the very nature of consciousness itself. As the discussions raged on, Will's comm unit buzzed. A message from Dr. Sargent. "Alex has gone into seclusion with Dr. Amara and NEVIS. He's different." Will frowned, a plan forming in his mind. If the council wouldn't recognize humanity's potential, perhaps it was time to forge their own path. Days passed in a haze of tense negotiations and backroom deals. Will worked tirelessly, building alliances and leveraging Alex's newfound status to push for human independence. But Inara was always one step ahead. Will caught glimpses of her furtive communications, sensing a hidden agenda behind her diplomatic facade. The breaking point came during a late-night session. Will stood before the council, his voice ringing out clear and firm. We hereby declare humanity's unilateral sovereignty from galactic oversight. Our achievements, culminating in Alex Novak's transcendent abilities, prove we are ready to chart our own course. The chamber exploded into chaos. Anara's face contorted with rage as she shouted, "This is unacceptable. You have no authority." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Emergency channels lit up with frantic reports. Multiple worlds under attack. Psychic assaults overriding our defenses. Unknown entity calling itself Puria, claiming responsibility. Will's blood ran cold as he recognized a familiar voice in the garbled transmissions. General Forge, somehow twisted and amplified, spewed rhetoric about cosmic errors and purification. As council members scrambled to respond, Will caught Anara's eye. For a moment, understanding passed between them. Whatever their differences, a greater threat had emerged. But before they could act, a searing pain lanced through Will's mind. He gasped, clutching his head as images flooded his consciousness. Alex, his eyes glowing with otherworldly power, leading a ragtag fleet of ships against a swirling vortex of entropic energy. When the vision cleared, Will found himself on his knees, Commander Taylor supporting him. "What did you see?" she asked, her voice urgent. Will looked up, his eyes haunted. The end of everything, and maybe our only hope to stop it. As alarms continued to blare and reports of psychic warfare poured in from across the galaxy, Will knew the real battle was just beginning. Humanity's place among the stars would be decided not in council chambers, but in the crucible of cosmic conflict. The alarms continued to blare as Will Gray stumbled to his feet, his knees going weak from the vision. Commander Taylor steadied him, her silver eyes searching his face for answers. "We need to find Alex," Will said, his voice hoarse. "He's the key to stopping this." As if on cue, the facility trembled. A blinding light filled the council chamber, coalescing into a shimmering portal. Through it stepped Alex Novak, but he was changed. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly radiance, and his body seemed to flicker in and out of existence. "Will?" Alex's voice echoed with 1,000 harmonics. "It's time." Without hesitation, Will stepped through the portal. The world dissolved around him, reforming into a vast, impossible landscape. Fractals of light and shadow stretched to infinity, pulsing with the rhythm of creation itself. "Where are we?" Will asked, his voice barely a whisper in the cosmic expanse. Alex's form shimmered, becoming more ethereal. "The quantum matrix of the universe. This is where the battle for existence will be fought." As if summoned by his words, monstrous forms began to materialize. Entropy spawned abominations, their very presence a violation of reality. Will recognized the twisted visage of General Forge among them, his eyes burning with madness. "The Puria," Alex explained, his voice resonating through Will's mind. "They seek to unravel all of creation." A familiar blue glow appeared at Alex's side, coalescing into a spectral form. NEVIS, now a multiversal entity, spoke with a voice like starlight. "The hyper-singularity has been activated. Multiple realities are already collapsing." Will watched in horror as entire universes blinked out of existence, consumed by cosmic fire. But Alex stood firm, his consciousness expanding to encompass the devastation. With a thought, he projected a counter-resonance, weaving a higher dimensional construct to contain the spreading annihilation. The Puria howled in fury, their forms merging into a writhing mass of antimatter. They hurled themselves against Alex's psychic barricade, reality itself buckling under the strain. Countless minds joined the fray. Will felt the presence of Dr. Amara, leading a charge of council reinforcements. Even Anara lent her formidable will to the cause, all differences set aside in the face of oblivion. As the battle raged across dimensions, a new presence entered the metaphysical arena. Lyra, the Barzan renegade, her centuries of pain manifest as a vengeful anti-psychic form. She clashed with Forge, their duel a microcosm of the cosmic struggle between determinism and free will. In a blinding flash, Lyra sacrificed herself, her essence dissipating Forge's singularity. The remaining Puria faltered, their violent convictions unraveling as they glimpsed the eternal harmony Alex embodied. One by one, they renounced their crusade, merging into Alex's transcendent consciousness. But even as victory seemed assured, Will saw the strain etched on Alex's face. He existed in every moment, upholding the infinite possibilities of creation. "Alex," Will called out, reaching for his friend, "you have to let go. You can't hold it all forever." Alex turned to Will, his eyes filled with radiant inevitability. "I know," he said, his voice echoing across realities, "but I can leave something behind." With a final surge of will, Alex collapsed the myriad probabilities into a single timeline. In that instant, Will felt something change, a resonant idea, seeded into the very fabric of reality. The cosmic mindscape faded, and Will found himself back in the council chamber. Alarms still blared, but the immediate threat had passed. Commander Taylor approached, her face a mix of awe and concern. "What happened?" she asked. "Where's Alex?" Will looked at his hands, still tingling with residual energy. "He's gone," he said softly, "but he left us a gift, a potential for something greater." As the dust settled and the galaxy began to recover, reports trickled in of new psychic phenomena on Earth and human colonies. Children born with abilities beyond anything seen before. Will knew this was just the beginning, Alex's final gift to humanity. The choice of what to do with this new potential now rested with them. As Will looked out at the stars, he felt the weight of that responsibility settling on his shoulders. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt hope.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.